Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. I'm actually flying solo today without my co-host, Dr. Peter Boulden, but I've got my esteemed friend and colleague, Dr. Andrew Turchin, coming live from Aspen, Colorado. How you doing, Andrew?
Very good, Craig. Good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, what has it been? A couple of weeks, right?
Couple of weeks, I know. We miss you here.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. So anyway, I want to tell you guys how I came to know Andrew. So I knew about Andrew because he is a really well-regarded cosmetic dentist, and he does a teaching program, an over-the-shoulder program, and we travel in a small circle. We have a couple mutual friends. But what I found most amazing about you and made my decision firm that I had to meet you was that you had well-established and startup practice in Manhattan, and you were doing really well, and you basically pulled the cord, the effort cord, and made a big move and started all new. So I want to put a pin in that for 1 second because I love that topic, but that made me so intrigued. I'm like, I've got to meet this dude. So I'm in Aspen July 25th through the first week of August, and I just ping you and I'm like, hey, we got to get together. And my wife is like, well, who's this guy? What do you mean? I'm like, oh, we dentists, we do that. So I show up at your office, and it was literally bromance at first sight, dude. We hit it off. So I'm like, we're talking for the first 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm talking to a fucking mirror. This guy is me, you are me, and I am you. So all of our idiosyncrasies, and it was just an amazing night. We went out for a couple of drinks and realized how many mutual friends we have and the mutual philosophies we have in dentistry, and pulling out our iPhones and showing different cases and hanging out with your lab tech. That was awesome, man.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And I still haven't done the genetic testing to find out if we're actually related.
You know what? Don't do it because we probably are. Let's make an assumption that we are.
Yeah.
But it was such a fun night, and my wife comes over and sees us. Like, we were only supposed to meet for like an hour. It wound up being like 3 hours, many nights of hanging out together, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So I literally, during the time I'm in Aspen, I'm like, so why don't we do this? Why don't I become a partner in your practice? And what we'll do, and Andrew's like, yeah, let's do this. And
Come on
I'll
in.
do the Invisalign. Let's do it. So I'm like going on Google how to get my Colorado license. Oh man, what a great add to the trip. So thank you for doing this, by the way. Thank you for making the time to talk to everybody. And I got a lot of questions, and I really appreciate the fact that you're an open book like me. And that's what really, we resonated really well. Instantly, our conversation didn't go to how great we're doing. It instantly went to the common frailties that we have. Instantly, the first moments we started talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I think is valuable because that noise that's not happening in dentistry. There's so many people telling you about how great they're doing. And thank God, knock on wood, we're both doing well. But let's talk about
the challenges, right? We have challenges every day.
Yeah, we really do. So I want to start from the story. So I know of Andrew Turchin being a well-regarded Manhattan dentist, practicing in Manhattan itself, in Midtown, right?
Absolutely.
Doing well, making some waves, getting some notoriety, both in the dental world and outside of dentistry. And then, so let's take us back to that. What's going on? I want to hear the full story for the listener. So you leave school, you go where?
I go right out of school. I was very lucky. I was looking for an associateship in New York City, which seems like the most impossible thing in the world. And I landed one with Jonathan Levine, who's teaches the NYU Aesthetic Continuum now, and it was a great 2 years. Let's put it that way. I learned a lot, but people say you start at the bottom and
you started pretty high then, buddy.
Yeah, pretty much started at the top and spent 2 years there. Learned a lot, and then I opened my own practice on Fifth Avenue, not far, maybe about right outside the restrictive covenant.
Yeah, exactly. One inch.
Yeah.
What kind of restrictive covenant do you have in Manhattan? They're so dense. Is it like 6 inches or 500 people?
10 blocks is the norm. That's like supposedly accepted. So I was 10 and a half blocks. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That's just where I found space and opened up. I literally put up a shingle, like that old fashioned idea of putting up a shingle and hoping they come. I figure a lot of people stroll by on Fifth Avenue and they
by the way, what's the shingle? We got to really talk. Let's put a pin in that. Cause shingles go on roofs. That's not a generally accepted term in my brain.
I put the shingle up or sign, whatever you want to call it, Larry. And, nobody comes, by the way. That doesn't work.
Exactly,
Nobody comes. I don't know. I must have done like 200 my first year. Luckily, I had a 2-day a week associateship anyway. Actually, I was helping rebuild world. Actually, how appropriate to, it's 9/11 today. Timely. Yeah, I helped rebuild World Trade Center Dental afterwards. They were in the towers. There was one practice that was there. Absolutely. And and they called me up. A friend of mine was practicing there and he couldn't do it. It was too traumatic for him. And he called me to say, Andrew, I know you were the next guy they were trying to bring in anyway. Can you just take my position? And we spent a few years rebuilding it. So I was there 2 days a week and I opened my own practice 2 days a week. And
Wow.
it did almost nothing. So, I started being smart and buying practices like a normal human being, right? That's in New York City, you don't send out mailers. That doesn't work. Nothing really works except buying practices and then getting a reputation. But that starter practice was really helpful. And suddenly we were, doing some real dentistry. And it was really exciting. We outgrew it and we moved over to Madison Avenue to a 6 operatory practice. And I was enjoying every bit of it. And a lot of people think I got burnt out on it. And I had to do something. I escaped. And realistically, I'm a passionate person. I wanted to follow my passion. And my passion is, believe it or not, outside of dentistry and cooking, is skiing. And I love to ski. I love to ski more than anything in the world, except a few other things we won't talk about. But realistically, that's why I did it. And everybody thought it was crazy. How do you give this up, Andrew?
So how many years total had you worked in New York? How many years?
13 years.
So that's
I know that seemed like a fast history, but 13
yeah,
years.
but let that sink in, because that's like, the ass kicking that you've gone through the first couple of years of like, I can't believe I can't afford to do things. I'm a licensed dentist and starting up and moving around and losing an associateship and rebuilding. And it's 13 years, your career, I'm presuming, because I think we actually talked about it. You were doing well progressively. So you had actually gone over the hump.
Oh, well over the hump. I had the dream practice. I had my dream practice. I always strive for, when you get out of dental school, you say, I'm going to do this one day. And I had surpassed that already. I was really happy with everything about the practice. We had done a massive renovation. It wasn't quite your palace, but it was a New York City 6 operatory practice that my now current wife designed. And she has some pretty darn good taste.
Yeah, she's talented. Yep. I saw your existing practice.
And she, does that classic New York City thing really well.
She has good taste with design, not in choosing spouses, I gotta say, but it's okay.
Well, I'm kind of famous. She married down, I married up, right?
Yeah, you definitely did, buddy.
You know how it is.
I do. Thank you.
I met your wife.
That's true. I definitely did. I did, but I looked a lot better 15 years ago, Andrew. So that's crazy. So that's what fascinated me, because I'm a dreamer, and I, these romantic ideals of starting over and getting a second chance in life. Many people don't have that. Many people just think that what they're doing is their destiny, and they get stuck and they don't change, and they live a life that's not fully to the expression of what they want to create. And in dentistry, I think that's more prescient, because it just takes so long to develop a practice. Like if you're a software engineer and you want to go from NVIDIA to whatever, great, bring it on. Like, how do you, after blood, sweat, and tears and over a decade of work, and finally people are like, oh yeah, you did Sally's teeth, I want to come to you. You're like, yeah, I'm going to throw that away. You don't throw away your experience and your clinical skill, but your reputation is gone. It doesn't fall to Aspen.
And it's so important. Actually, shockingly, it did a little bit.
Cool.
Aspen's one of those places, as you know very well, has tentacles everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Quite a few new patients when I got here say, oh, I got an email from a friend that you were coming. So I wasn't stupid. I asked a few people that had some Aspen connections to make sure their friends knew I was coming. And so I came with a bit of a reputation from New York. Wasn't huge, but little kernels is all you need. Kind of like getting in, I'm sure you have this, getting in with a certain company, and suddenly everybody's talking about you at that company, or coworkers.
Yeah.
And I think we had at least a few kernels of that in Aspen.
Did you vacillate though, or was it a pretty clear, like you knew in your heart, I have to do this, or were you kind of waxing and waning on the idea for a while?
Well, I mentioned as a crazy idea, just like you and me BSing. I said to my girlfriend at the time, we were pretty serious and we were probably, I think we were getting married. I thought we both knew that, but I had not asked the question or anything like that yet. But I said, what do you think about moving to Aspen? And that was my foot in the door because she said, I don't know, let's look into it. That's all I needed. I had a full price offer a few weeks later in my practice, and it was a good number. It was you know especially before we were looking at EBITDA and stuff. And to tell you the truth, my huge Manhattan practice didn't have it had an average profitability percentage, so the EBITDA was actually through the roof.
Oh, interesting. What was the EBITDA multiple?
Oh, let's see. Well, I got 90% of gross on a not a great grossing practice, so I think it was like 7 or 8.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you
That's
think
super
about,
cool.
yeah.
That's very cool. So when you get to Aspen, what was there any time during the first startup years where you're like, oh shit, this was a bad idea? Did you ever have that feeling ever once?
Every day. No,
No
I'm kidding.
way.
No, not every day.
Oh,
It's just, it was so hard. The hardest thing about Aspen is there is no workforce whatsoever, and
yeah.
certainly not a dentally trained one. So
Or there
I,
is a workforce. There's probably some like wealthy billionaire's wife that wants to like used to be a dental hygienist, and she would only probably take like 4 or 500 grand and come in 2 days a week to
yeah,
help you as a
exactly.
hygienist.
Yeah, I have a lot of extremely wealthy patients that say, "Oh, I used to be a hygienist," and I'm thinking that was decades ago.
Yeah.
And now you married well or did
Yeah.
something,
Right.
got into real estate. I have buddies
Right.
here that are all ex-dentists, but they, rolled up into
Oh
real
yeah,
estate.
we have buddies. We have buddies in common. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That became real estate moguls in
Yeah.
Aspen. By the way, his house just sold here. His
Oh
our
yeah.
mutual buddy's house that he developed because he became a developer just sold for, I don't know, it was on the market for 29 million, and the market's really hot here right now. So I wonder if he got it. He
Yeah,
actually
so the
told me,
market's hot everywhere. I mean,
I
like, unfortunately, I was talking to a real estate person this
know.
morning, and they're like reaching out to me. They're like, "Hey, do you want to sell your house?" I'm like, "I don't, not really thought of it." They're like, "Well, there's people from Connecticut and New York that are coming to Florida right now, sight unseen, and they'll buy your house for XX." I was like, "What are you talking about?" So I literally told my wife, I'm like, "Babe, would you move to a condo? Because I could actually take this money out." And she was surprisingly receptive to the idea.
Wow, I would never think she would be my wife
Yeah,
would
she
say
was
no.
super receptive.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like,
that's
the whole concept of like, you earn your money, but you got to have your money earning for you. And she understands that. She's like, well, listen,
that's awesome.
if to take that money out and go spend it on something stupid is one thing, but if you actually invested that, and that would change our trajectory, she's like, I don't mind. I mean, the condo, granted, is not like a crappy condo, but there's just the real estate market's just super hot. So that's
Super,
crazy.
yeah,
There's a
exactly.
massive geographic distribution going on right now. And
Yeah, I
by
was
the
sitting
way, we got to put a pin in this too. You're like this maverick investor. Like, oh my God, we put that in the posting. I'm sorry, I'm gonna write that down because I don't want to lose any of this stuff. So you go to Manhattan. You're like, what the fuck did I do for a little while? You finally break through, obviously, because you're doing really well now. But I just want to talk about the period of time where you're like, were you ever thinking about, should I go back to Manhattan? Was that ever an idea?
I would imagine. I actually recollect a few conversations with my wife saying, "Was this? Are we crazy?" I mean, the staff struggles are so real. Do you know David Maloney at all? He's a guy in Vale.
Yeah, I do know
Uh,
that guy.
what does he
We were on
do?
a call with him, right? Or maybe not.
Was Molo? I don't think Maloli was on that call.
Okay,
Maybe he
got it.
was. Though. We had a whole good crew on that call during our COVID calls, just bringing
Yeah.
the minds together. Um, but Maloli also, I used to think it was me. He's also. I thought it was me. I said I can't lead a team here. It's difficult, and realistically, I think we all have that challenge on occasion. But
Well, right now it's super present, man.
yeah,
Everybody I'm talking to is having the same issue.
I had a year that I had to find temporary hygienists to come in from other states. And we
Wow.
had a condo that we'd put them up at. I mean, this was,
Wow.
how do you have a, a 7-figure practice without a hygienist. And I
Well, I
thought
mean, the
maybe
cost of real Aspen is this own little like island in the midst of, thousands of miles of wilderness, and it's pretty fancy, man. It's pretty fancy. That was a,
pricey at least, right? Even
yeah,
if some of the real estate is kind of from the 70s, it's pricey and,
I know. I can't believe it. I couldn't believe the prices of things. So it's true. I mean, that you probably didn't have a good understanding of that coming in, huh?
I heard, but I was coming from New York and I thought, oh, whatever, nothing could be more expensive than New York. I truly think Aspen is. My rent is not. My rent is actually a lot less for my office here for some odd reason and similar size. And we have great location right on Main Street. But the rest of it, food, there's
Yeah, I noticed
no,
that. I know.
there's no $15 pasta plate at your neighborhood Italian. It's
Yeah, no, I know. I know.
$35 pasta plates at there's only 7 restaurants in town, and it's
Yeah, but I
so
commend you for doing something that I think people chase. Um, I think, especially in dentistry, people chase like economic fulfillment over true fulfillment. And I commend you for making a decision at a point in your career when you had significant investment and pulling the cord and starting anew. I think that's really refreshing. There's probably a lot of people that are listening right now that are not in a great situation, or they're in a good situation. They got everything they ever wanted, which is really unfortunately a bad situation when you get everything you ever wanted and you still wind up being unfulfilled. And you can't quite figure out, you know what it was? I hijacked someone else's vision or someone else's dream, or I took over this practice. And you know what? I got one life to live, and I really want to like be over there. I love surfing, and I live 500 miles from the coast or whatever it is. I think that's just so cool that you did that.
thanks, my man. I actually got 2 calls this week, or within the last week, from dear friends in New York City who are thinking of changing their world, and they called me because I guess they've done it. One wants to sell their practice. One has been an associate for 30 years at the same practice. It's a very well-known restorative dentist, and and they're like, I want out.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what my solution is?
Do it.
You leave yours, you keep yours, join. I'm putting them together.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
One says their volume's down. That means the overhead's getting high. There's more
Oh
risk.
yeah.
And I'm like, you guys are old friends anyway.
I know. I know. I
Right.
do that all the time, by the way. I do that I'm like, guys, you have they're talking these 3 offices, or like, we're all upset we don't know what to do. I'm like, band up together. We don't
Right.
do that in dentistry, unfortunately, as much as we should. You see these law firms and spinal orthopedic groups that are just like 15 partners. Like, that's awesome.
I kind of like what you've done. You've built a
Yeah.
very big facility. I don't know. Why don't you bring those 3 practices? You're at capacity. I know.
No, but it's no, I'm not, I love collaboration. I mean, people talk about partnerships and how bad they can be. And people, it's like marriage too. People are like, if you really looked at the statistics, you and I would have never gotten married. Marriage
Yeah.
is not a great ROI if you look at the numbers,
You're
because you
right.
can get divorced.
Yeah.
Kids are not a great ROI. Partnerships sometimes can go awry. But I think the beauty is working together with people for a long time. I think that's the most rewarding thing. My partnerships that I have are just awesome. They're challenging at some points, but you evolve and you communicate, and I think that works. I mean, I'm happy you say that, because I say the same thing to people. So
Absolutely.
so let's switch gears for a second here. So most of your practice is, what percentage of your practice now is cosmetic? Are you doing some quadrant dentistry, or is it like very rare that you do that
I
stuff?
do single tooth dentistry sometimes. I'd say
Okay.
about 50% big cases. There are weeks, especially in the summer, we have busy season, slow season, it's very seasonal. Another challenge to see your business go down, almost 50%
Sorry,
for,
what's the slow season for dentistry? I'm presuming it's the summer.
no, summer's the busiest.
Oh,
It's
okay, got it,
shocking. Yeah,
got it,
people
got it.
are here for so long. People come to ski in the winter and they might get some dentistry done, but they're only here for a week to ski.
Oh, I got it, got it. Yeah, so
Think
they're
of
hanging.
yourself. You came for how many weeks? A few weeks at least, right?
Yeah, yeah. In the winters, I'm there for like a handful of days.
Exactly. So when are you going to get dentistry done? So in the summer, in the winter, I hear, I'll be back in the winter, Andrew. And I mean, in the summer, I'll get it done then. So in the
Got it.
summer, I could spend maybe 4 mornings a week doing, reconstructive, like full arches or 10 units and up. And in the winter and the fall season, it might be, if I'm lucky, once a week. So I'd say about half the units we do are part of huge cases. Again, 10 units, but we do a lot of full mouth. I'd say more than most cosmetic dentists, we're really lean towards the reconstructive dentistry. People have had veneers and crowns and mixed things, and it's time to just,
Yeah, they've had it done piecemeal. They built the house one room at a time.
Exactly.
And now it's like, yeah, which color do you want me to match of your 8 front teeth
Exactly.
when I do this number 10 for you?
Yeah.
I can make it look like 11. I can make it look like 9, but I can't just pick a color.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a great conversation starter, by the way, when someone has patchwork cosmetic dentistry and it's all sound, but then they break their front tooth. Yeah. It's just like, you realize we have 6 different colors across here.
Exactly. And people wonder where my patients come from. It comes from exactly that. We've set up our practice, even though everybody thinks I, sit down and see one patient at a time. I do, but we've actually built our practice to be ready to go for emergencies and pretty much never say no to a broken front tooth. I never want to say no to a broken front tooth.
No, God, no. And also, like, you're in Aspen, like, for us in normal parts of the world, a broken front tooth could be a guy like, yeah, it broke 7 years ago and I want to do it today because I got a date, and like the guy, like, takes the bus. And when you tell them it's a couple $100 for this or that, they're like, what, are you kidding me? So you have this pre-qualified thing because you're geographically, like, if you can afford to be in that zip code, you could probably get together. Even if you're a waiter or any type of employee, you're making decent money in Aspen. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
Which
cool.
Also makes it a challenge to bring people into the office, because how much can we really pay people in dentistry? I totally overpay people here, but competing with that hospitality industry and the tips, the as they call it, the Aspen 10, it's really 100.
What's the Aspen? What does that mean?
It's called a $100 bill in Aspen is referred to as an Aspen 10.
Oh, wow.
Because people will tip hundreds on occasion. So,
So when I was at Casa 2 and I gave the lady a 5, you think that didn't go well? I didn't.
She was probably like, yeah, I thought he was nice. Why is he being so? No, I'm sure you're a very generous tipper, but
I'm kidding. We had so much fun. My God, it was so much fun. We left this restaurant. I'm like, I think I ruined your relationship with this, because everybody knows you. It's a small town. I'm like, hey, Dr. Turchin. Oh my God. Hey, keep flossing. Keep it up.
Let's be honest. They all know you now. Craig, you know who I saw last night?
Who?
I went to 7908. I saw your favorite DJ.
No way. Cedric was there?
He was sitting right next to me. We ate
inside.
Say hi? Of course I said hello. And I said, can you believe who I'm going to be on a podcast with tomorrow? I told him we were doing this.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was sitting with the owner. I think they're best buddies now.
Yeah, they're best buddies. No, they were best buddies from a while ago.
The father.
Yeah, the father.
Yeah.
Israeli guy, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I remember that. So yeah, Cedric Gervais came to us, and unfortunately, I didn't know who he was, but like my team was freaking the fuck out. They're like, oh my God. So of course I know the summertime sadness and stuff like that, but I'm not the guy to be at the I don't even know. I don't even know what they're called, so I'm not even going to go there because I'll date myself. Fiestas, the festivals. I don't know. But anyway, he's a good friend now. He's a good guy, and I hung out with him a little bit while he's in Aspen. He lives there now in the summers, and he's like, I need a dentist, so that's your connection now. So,
absolutely.
Great guy, really good guy. You'll really enjoy him. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a small world, this little town.
Well, it's a small town, that's for sure. That's awesome. So let's jump gears here, because like you have this amazing talent that freaks me out. You have 2 major talents two talents I want to touch upon, I should say. Number 1 talent is you as a teacher, because I want to talk about the over-the-shoulder cosmetic coaching that you do. And then but before we get to that, I want to talk about your market savvy. It's fucking crazy, man. Like you showed me this chart that you did before the market crash, like a year or two, that you predicted the market
2018,
crash.
yeah.
You're like Nostradamus of the stock market. And you send me this email, and I'm very thankful for it, but I only understand like a quarter of it.
Yeah.
So how are you doing teeth? Why are you wasting your time talking to me if you have this amazing ability to predict the market? Like, talk to me about that.
Wow. Well, I just, from an academic standpoint, I find it really interesting, the market. I'm a firm believer that the market is patterned. I think I've proven that since 2 years ago when I drew out the path of the market, of a bear market in 2018, a bull market up to the beginning of 2020, and a bear market in 2020. I know, it's like, right? And
Yeah,
everybody,
it's crazy.
I have friends that say, Andrew, you predicted coronavirus. And I said, no, 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 no. I predicted the market and the market predicted corona. And that might seem way out there woo woo, but it's really based in science. There's a great book called Wisdom of Crowds that I'm a
Yeah.
fan of, and shows the science behind experts being wrong on most occasions, crowds. Oh, you show me?
Well, for those that are actually watching,
oh.
for those that are watching a video right now, I pulled something up on the screen. I'm sharing my screen. If you're not watching, I'll explain it to you. It is the most convoluted series of green, red, and dots. And Andrew sends this to me like somehow I'm going to make sense of all this. And I feel stupid, so I have to actually say, oh yeah, thank you. You know, I agree with you about the RSI and the whatever the hell this shit is. But I mean, it's uncanny. So what are you doing? Why are you not like why don't you make a hedge fund? What's up with that?
Oh, that's complicated. Trading other people's money is probably the hardest thing in the world. By the way, trading one's own money is hard.
I
The
know.
psychology of trading, I can't tell you how many times I have been shaken out on my own predictions that are right every time.
Yes. Did I tell
If
you what
I
happened
just,
during this March 21st? March
no,
21st, I wake up with the idea I'm going to buy the largest single position. And I don't want to mention the number, but it was a six-figure position of the S&P 500. So they said, so my buddy's like, don't buy the S&P, buy VTI, which is basically the same thing, an
yeah,
index fund.
sure.
I do it. Everybody says, including Peter Boulden, what the fuck are you doing, man? We are about to go through. I know it dropped a shit ton today. I bought it at 121, but we are about to go through the worst economic storm ever. I'm like, I know, but I'm long term. That's all good. So a day later, I sold 90% of it because I wasn't convicted and I was
Yeah,
nervous. So I
yeah,
put that money back in like a Capital One account, getting 0.0001%
yeah,
interest. But the money I left in there is now at 40%. So
exactly.
I have no conviction either.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, luckily I didn't do that.
Yeah,
I
well, I still
actually
made money. I just didn't make as much as I should have.
Exactly, but it's hard, and I can't imagine the pressure of dealing with other people's money.
I think it would
But
be less. You just
yeah,
have it. You just, I would show those charts and be like, look, this is my track record. You know, hey, listen, tell me your track record and let me get you. I will never make a peep. I'll sign a social disclosure to never harass you.
yeah,
I will
exactly
never call
right.
you and ask.
Exactly. Actually, I just did my track record, not necessarily of trading, because I think we all get shaken out at times. And the market is designed to do that, by the way. It
Of course it is.
literally, the psychology of markets. I always say, if you really want to understand the psychology of what you're talking about, of that fear and greed of making a decision, being in it, then being shaken out, and you're doing that maybe once or twice a year, making a big trade, I say day trade for a day or two, and you'll have every day you have a million opportunities to feel that same thing if you're trading minute charts and 5 minute charts, because the market's actually fractal. If you know what a fractal, there's small versions and big versions. The same exact drastic moves are happening on the minute charts as daily charts. So you get booms and busts and all that emotion in a very short time frame. And I've done that as well. I mean, there was a week where during COVID, I day traded with a 67% return. The market,
Wow.
the market moved 3% in a week, up and down, up and down, and up and down. And I traded up for a 67% return. I,
Wow.
but guess what? I can't repeat it. It's emotionally draining. I mean, I've done everything there is to do with the market. I find it fascinating. Day trading is not something I can withstand for a long amount. It's a massive amount of stress.
Yeah.
All those decisions that you have to make. Should I stay in? Should I not? All day, every day.
Yeah. Then CNN, like China has something coming up. Oh shit. Is that going to rattle everybody?
By the
It's
way,
super.
I don't look at the news. I
Oh,
don't
you
look at the
don't
news.
while you're day trading? You don't,
No, I
so you're
don't look
just
at the
looking at
news
the,
ever. I don't
good
believe
for
in it.
you.
And in my experience, it's contrary. Like your friend, the news was saying everything was horrible on everything was horrible on March 21st, right?
Oh yeah. It was terrible.
And the news was bad, bad, bad. But on March 16th, by the way, I called that exact bottom on March
You
23rd.
told me that.
I
You
have
told me
the,
that. But without
it's in the chart.
coronavirus, though, without coronavirus. So everybody thinks it was due. So you're saying it was just due for a correction, and the causative people are like, oh, it's because of this. But in actuality, it was the metrics that were pre-built into the market, correct?
or the market knew.
Yeah, the
That's
market. Yeah,
that's the market can
yeah,
markets can actually predict the future more accurately than any expert for sure. Economists never predict any of these bear markets. There's never in history been two bear markets and a bull market in a 2.5 year span. And people are like, oh, Andrew, you got lucky. Well, how did I get lucky calling in advance three gigantic moves that have never happened in history?
yeah.
And I would say I just understood the pattern, and I saw the pattern and I called it.
Let
And
me
it was,
just dumb this all
yeah.
down for people that are like me that are listening right now, because I want to make a point from all this. So if you're like me and you're not really understanding all the trends and stuff like that, the best time to jump in and start investing was yesterday. And the timing is great if you understand it all, but you just want to like, there's a lot of young guys out there, a lot of young ladies and gentlemen that are brand new minted dentists. And the first, there's a book, that Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I reread it recently. And I'm also a big fan of this guy, Naval Ravikant, who talks about like getting rich. And he says he always talks about like doctors and lawyers and stuff, that we don't wind up getting rich because we wind up earning really well, but we steadily earn over time. And we don't usually have events. People get rich from events because when you have an event, you sell something and you get, $100,000. You'll tend to take that money. People tend to take that and invest it versus like you make 100 grand a year and then you make 120 or 140. And each year your expenses creep up accordingly with your earnings. I mean, I find myself thinking like when I was like 10 years ago, if I could just make this, oh my God. And then I made that. And now I'm still tight, money, you'll always have the same relative expenses to what you make. So I think there's something that I want to just impress upon people, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. If you haven't read it, or if you haven't read in a long time, read it. And there's one for children as well, but he talks about, earning money or having your money earned for you. So even if you don't understand the RSI index and the market timing and all that stuff, invest in your future and start putting some stuff away. It will grow. The law of averages and law of returns in the stock market is really in our favor, even through all the major crises in the world. And if you buy the day before the crash, over time, it won't fucking matter. Right?
Yes, in history, that's worked out. I think we're headed for a larger correction in a few years, to be honest.
Okay, but let's just
I
say
don't want to be a
here,
doomsdayer, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
That's what
But let's
my
just,
patterns are saying.
no, I understand. I understand. My tea leaves say the same thing, Andrew. But I'm just saying that if you buy, if you're a young, person out there that's a young dentist and you're making more money, if you start investing the day before that major crash, and you're 35 or younger, or even 45, and you got a 20-year horizon, you will actually be really happy that you bought that day before the crash, even though you won't be happy for possibly years. Long term, you'll be happy.
It'll be hard. And the truth is, though, what happens emotionally is people that buy at that top sell at the bottom.
Yes, of course they do. And all
you
these brokers are telling them to do that, by the way. Hey, leave your money in cash. I'll tell you when. Bullshit.
Yeah,
bullshit.
Exactly. What's always interesting is people like to compare, trying to time the market with buy and hold. And first of all, my calls from 2.5 years ago, if you just follow those, this is the weirdest thing. It returned 121%. And the market, if you timed every top and bottom perfectly, was 151%.
Oh my God. So you're saying like getting in and out at the ideal times versus staying in is like a diminishing level return.
Well, my calls, my random chart that you saw from 2.5 years ago, called 121 of the 151% of the perfect.
Oh, call. I understand. I misunderstood you. Got it.
And then the buy and hold was about 20% from the day I drew that chart to today.
Got it. Well, Peter's not on this call, but he would be at this point. He'd been inserting a comment. He'd be like, "Hey, Andrew, what's your thought on Bitcoin?" So I'm going to play Peter for you.
Okay, Bitcoin. It's funny because I called. It's all charts. So 2 weeks before the top of Bitcoin a couple of years ago, I ranted on Facebook that this is gonna drop, and it did. And then I called. Along the way, I said, "It looks like a bottom around 4,000 or 5,000." Now, if you followed Bitcoin, it literally dipped to 3,200. For a second. So right below my target, years out. So you would think I would know what's going on with Bitcoin right now. I just know recently around 11,000, I said, we're going to pull back. I don't have an exact number where we're pulling back to. somewhere definitely at 12,000, I was saying 7, but it could even be down as low as 5.
What do
But
you think happens to crypto and Bitcoin specifically 5 years down the road?
well, after that pullback, but that's a drastic pullback, and I don't want any, but people are going to get shaken out. But after that pullback to from where we are now, around 10,000 down to 7 or 5,000, I think we're going to have a pretty darn big run.
Really?
I predict 60,000.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means you're long on Bitcoin, and you'd consider owning it if you don't own it already.
Yeah, I wouldn't own it now because I sold it, around 10.5. I was a little bit early, but I knew we were topping. And I said, you know what? I was taking a nice profit. I owned it since 4,000. So
Interesting.
I was a happy guy.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, and a disclaimer here: I am not fit to give investment advice, nor do I pretend to be.
Neither am I, by the
Yeah.
way. I mean,
I find it interesting, and I find your track record interesting. It's really cool that you're into that. Let's get something back to dentistry for one second, because I know market timing is something that probably a lot of people are interested in. Talk to me about like your journey and why you decided to start helping other dentists in the cosmetic coaching, over the shoulder coaching.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I remember after seeing a lot of emergency temporary veneer situations while people were in town, and people saying, I had one woman in particular, I'll never forget, she fell off her bike. A temporary came off, not the fault of the dentist. And I said, oh, let's get this back on. And what do you think of, do you like your temporary? She says, no, but don't worry. The
permanents are going to be amazing.
Exactly.
I just know it.
Exactly.
I just know the dentist has exactly what I want in his mind.
Exactly.
And there will be no surprises.
Prep and pray.
Prep and pray.
And I remember
I like that.
Right? That's the prep and pray idea, that she's going to like them. And I said, I would have a conversation with your dentist about possibly working on this in the plastic instead of working on it in porcelain, and making sure you like that first. So I just realized that what I thought was the norm of how we do cosmetic
common sense
dentistry,
is not so common. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say a plastic surgeon wishes they had the opportunity my hygienist.
That's okay. You can do that with your kid. You remember how they palm the kid?
Right. I'm like, I'm in the middle of some.
That's true. Plastic surgeons wish they had what we had, man. Oh.
The opportunity to try something on. So we take it really seriously. I don't know if I'm nuts about my temporaries.
You should be.
Right?
There should be no surprises, but all the iconic guys they share that same philosophy. But it's cool because I'm not aware of too many like over the shoulder courses.
Yeah.
At least, so tell me about that. I know people can go to cosmeticcoaching.com, but what's the deal? Talk to me. I mean, I've seen your work. I've seen the layout. I've seen the lab. Tell me exactly what it is though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it started because a friend said, hey, I want my teeth done, and can you do them? And by the way, I think you should. I've never actually thought of a course or put on anything without somebody said, would you come speak? Or it's always somebody else's idea. It's so weird with the teaching. And I said, sure, let's do one. And when I set out to do it, I said, I'm going to teach it all. And I'm going to teach it in a way that people are going to actually learn this, because I've seen it over and over again. Dentists that have been to more continuing education than myself. I was lucky enough to actually practice with the guys teaching that, with Larry Rosenthal and Jonathan Levine and those guys. But I was always amazed. There was so many people that had been to hundreds of hours of CE that weren't doing the cases. And I said, I'm going to teach it in a concise format so that somebody could leave with the confidence to go do it that next week. And that's what we created. So the over the shoulder course it's over the shoulder, it's didactic lectures, and it's hands-on, taking records, designing each other's smiles and things like that. They're not prepping each other's teeth. But for me, I think people learn in different ways, and you need to kind of bring that information to them in multiple ways for it to actually stick. And I think of Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you're a big fan of Tim Ferriss, but I love his idea of accelerated learning. And so this is about, what do you need to know to get this done? Do we really need Piper's classification knowledge to be able to do a cosmetic case? I would say no. I haven't taken Piper's course, and doing fine with joints.
I'm really sorry to say this, but I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's, actually it's a Florida thing, I think. I think he's in Florida, North Florida somewhere, but he's the joint classification guy. And some people think this is necessary knowledge. We don't
Oh,
have,
yeah.
the
Okay, yeah.
Piper's
Okay.
class,
Yeah.
whatever. And
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't
yeah.
thinking joints. I was thinking like teeth and
Oh, yeah.
proportion.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think we need to be a TMJ expert
Yeah.
to do cosmetic and reconstructive work. We need to know how to screen people and know who not to touch and things like that.
And respect the envelope of function and read people's occlusion. It's amazing how many people just don't take into consideration. Like if you take a set of models that's articulated and you start looking at the wear facets and seeing what these patients do, it's pretty incredible. The envelope of function can be so varied for certain people. And their teeth will tell you.
Absolutely.
People tell you.
And that's why everybody that goes through our continuum buys a whole articulator setup.
Which articulators are you guys using?
We're 82. Do you know 82? Okay. It's like a Panadent spinoff. Yeah. And you just call up and ask for the Turchin package. Anybody, even, your viewers, if they want a great setup at a great price, just ask for the Turchin package. It's what you need. It's not the excess junk, you don't.
Okay, cool.
And it's half the price of Panadent.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
what about one last thing I want to talk to you about? Well, when's your next core? How do you work it? Are you doing it as a revolving curriculum or is there just certain spots and times of the year?
We once or sometimes twice a year, we pull off in the off season because we're real seasonal. So ours is October 8th and 9th this year and November 5th and 6th. And it's 2 weekends because we prep on one weekend and people go home.
Come back and insert.
Yeah, we come back and insert, and they have homework. They mount each other's cases and they design and wax their own cases. And I urge dentists to wax some cases once in a while. I wax
for sure.
You learn so much about occlusion. And, we want to let our lab decide on this entire thing. And they're not as educated as we are on occlusion, or at least we should be more educated on occlusion than
it's also just they want your vision. Like it's not this idea like you send this thing out and the lab just magically knows what the hell's going on. I mean, that it should start from the vision of it all. It's incredible how many steps are not taken. You look at these really iconic providers like yourself and you see the amount of communication and back and forth. They look at you and your technician be like, oh my God, it's so cool you have that technician. It is cool, but like you are together on I heard you guys talking. It's like, oh yeah, Susie's number 10 on the bubble. I mean, you guys are in it. We
talk about line angles. I know you're a line angle guy and how much translucency this patient's going to want. And we've developed some really cool things. I think for me, having a technician let me tinker a little bit, and we've developed some layering processes so that we're monolithic in strength of Emax, and we don't have an incisal cutback, which most people are doing incisal cutbacks. And then you have this strong material Emax with the weakest part of the tooth, the incisal edge, built up in feldspathic porcelain. To me, that's counterproductive.
Well, there is, as technology advances, and I know we can go off on a tangent on this, but as technology advances, there is becoming, at least to my eye, a very limited amount of a law of diminishing returns, I should say, between the layering and the monolithic. The materials are getting so damn good that I'm like, okay, you significantly reduce the strength of that unit, and you made it look 2% better or 10% better. So it's interesting. I'm with you on that. That's like a 1 hour geeked out podcast that we could do. But I agree. Like in my mouth, if you could match me really, really well with an Emax, monolithic crown, please don't cut it back for me. I'm okay.
No. And if you do, just do it on the facial.
Right.
We don't have to cut back the edge.
Right. Exactly.
Every ceramist told me it was impossible, and I just kept pushing them.
No, but it's getting more. Like if you look at monolithics today versus monolithics of 5 years ago, you see the trajectory. Trajectory. So imagine,
especially with those stains, external stains. I mean,
it's incredible.
Yeah. You probably sat down in your lab and.
Oh, I do all the time. I love it. I love it.
So cool.
I love it. Yeah, because it's like, listen, it's in most parts of the world, the technician and the dentist are in the same place. It's really, there's not too many tooth obsessed cultures and societies like Germany and Japan and, US and UK maybe, but those other countries, the technician is a lot closer to the dentist than we are.
Yeah.
We're sending things all across the world and sending them everywhere. Like in Italy, they go there, they smoke a cigarette, they have the cappuccino, they talk about the thing. I had an
Yeah.
Italian technician in my office once. It was
Me
so
too.
freaking.
My first technician was Italian as well.
Oh my God, it's so
Uh,
funny. He was so artistic. And I mean, he was so unproductive. Like I remember telling him like I had a 3 o'clock patient with a custom shade and it'd be like 3:45. I'm like, Fernando, where are you? Or Federico, I can't remember what it is. So my guy was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, doctor. I went to take a coffee. I'm like, well, when's your coffee? Like, no, it's beautiful out. I'm like, I know. He's like, I'll be there at 4:30. I'm like, dude, it's at 3 o'clock. Like you gotta like, it was incredible, but it was a very enriching experience in many ways, and it was successful. It was cool, but
That's
it
awesome.
is awesome to have that collaboration. If you have that, or even if you have a local lab that you're using, go sit benchside with them. It's awesome. Before I had my own lab, I used to sit down with this guy Mike, and we'd stack cases together, staying late and drinking coffee and hanging out. It's actually really dynamic for patients. One thing I want to touch upon though too. Well, first of all, do you have any openings for that course? Or you like booked up forever because of?
I think there's 2 spots left is what
Okay,
I was
cool.
told. Yeah,
Okay, so go
absolutely.
to cosmeticcoaching.com. You can find it there, right?
Absolutely. It's just
Okay,
live. It says live course and just click on that. It has all the
awesome.
information.
And you can ask for the Spodak package, which means that Dr. Turchin will take you out for a scotch at Casa Tua at the end.
We have a lot of fun. We actually have a graduation, and I don't think we'll be able to do it this year in the same venue, but usually in the Nell's wine cellar.
Oh,
And
wow, that's
it's
awesome.
so much fun,
Yeah,
and we do a
good for
wine
you.
tasting. And anyway, it's a
You
lot
do
of
it
fun.
outdoors. It'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be a little chilly.
Yeah, but Aspen's doing it right. I was really happy to see how people are really being socially responsible in your area. So I felt really safe being over there, which is great. As opposed to I came back to Florida and I was like, oh shit, like everybody's going
Really
full blown, like out of control here. And we had more
crazy.
cases. Like people were being more sensitive about COVID in Aspen with fewer cases. And I came back to Florida at like 13 to 15,000 cases per day. And everybody's in the, on the streets and, but whatever. So just as a testament to like, being safe over there, I felt really good about being in Colorado. So you should too, if you're thinking about getting some CE right now. And I
Absolutely.
want to talk about one thing. What the heck was it? Something important. Oh yeah, for me, this is something that I don't know if you touch upon this in your courses or not. So I have the opportunity of working with many dentists in the same exact building. So you'll hear dentists all the time, Andrew, saying like, oh, my area is just not good, or my practice, or where I practice, they're not receptive to cosmetic dentistry, or this or that, or whatever external reason that they say. So it's interesting. I have this really neat social experiment where I have multiple doctors in the same practice seeing the exact same patients. And
Mm,
one will see a doctor who has great hand skills, and say to the doctor, I'm really sorry. I only want to do what insurance will pay. And where's my free this or that? And
yeah.
that patient will then go to some other part of the office, maybe the same exact day. So I'm not saying that they came, they listened to your stock portfolio and they made a lot of money or they made a good investment. I'm saying the same freaking day, Andrew, and meet
Yeah.
Dr. B. And Dr. B gets called in because Dr. B, there's a problem. The other doctor left for lunch or something. And there's a problem. The patient's like, oh, I wanted to ask about this little spot. They already had a comp exam. And Dr. B goes in there, Dr. A or whatever we want to call him.
Yeah.
And they go through and they say, well, what about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought of, and all of a sudden a $35,000 or $45,000 case evolves. So the point of that story is that in my practice, I can see that whatever you're selling yourself about, this is the wrong area. You can do it in your area. Of course, there are areas that don't support cosmetics at the same level. But what I'm trying to hit on is, do you touch upon the ability for a dentist to enroll patients? Because there's dentists out there that have horrible hands and they're killing it economically. And there's dentists out there that have better hands than you'll ever have, Andrew, and they cannot sell a single case, which is a travesty.
This is my concern. People go into continuum after continuum and them not doing cases. So obviously, case presentation is a huge part of it, and we go over all of it. I would only say this: every time I speak, if I'm giving it enough time, I give it all. I give every trick in my book. And
Good.
obviously, with 20, 25 new patients a month, we do a huge amount of reconstructive work because we have very thorough conversations. And I talk about how we take people and funnel them, in a conversation simply without getting, because also a lot of dentists are confused themselves on the options.
Oh, yeah.
And I teach them how to just funnel into,
Yeah.
do you want to fix it, maintain it, or do nothing?
Well, you see what you just said. You just asked a question. So many dentists think that a case presentation is an elaborate, dramatic monologue where you're trying to impress somebody. Just
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
don't know if your kids are listening. I don't wanna, but I'm like worried about cursing because you keep looking at the side. But it's like, just shut up and ask questions.
Yeah.
You don't take up all the oxygen in that console room. What's important to you? What do you want? What's frustrating? They'll tell you everything. I
Yeah.
go into dentist and we have like these glass console rooms. I've seen like when I'm training a dentist, they will just talk the whole time. I'll just see them talking and talking. Did you ask and I'll say, what's most important to the patient? Um, I think they really want that. What do you mean you think they want? What do they want? What did they say? Well, I think that they're like, well, what did they say? And then they realize they never asked.
They never ask. The first thing we do. Exactly. So we teach our process beginning to end. You're right. Why do dentists think, and the word need, by the way, you need to do, that's the biggest turnoff for every patient.
Yeah.
My friend in New York that wanted to leave, general dentist, she's like, everybody in New York's saying no to a crown that they need. And I'm like, do you tell them they need it? She's like, of course I do. I go, don't ever use that word again. Never say need to a patient, because nothing needs to happen.
I know, you don't even need your teeth.
You don't need your teeth.
They make really good nutritional shakes that you could get proper nutrition without any of your teeth.
Exactly.
Teeth are a luxury.
Fix, maintain, or do nothing. And if the more you say do nothing as an option and remind them that that's an option,
Of
the
course.
more you're giving them permission to say yes to something bigger.
Yes. You could do absolutely nothing. Well, what's going to happen? You'll probably come back with a swollen face. I don't know when. Could be in a week, could be in 6 months. Could be 6 years.
And it's good to have that conversation.
It's great to have that conversation.
And dentists want to just start with that. If you don't do this, you need to do this, and we're taught this.
And then when they say why, by the way, you then get defensive and you start going doctor speak.
Yeah.
Well, the decay is below the margin of the bone and migrating downward towards the pulp and going through the furcation. Once it's the furcation, you could bifurcate it and maybe do an apicoectomy. And like, what the fuck? It's like, you're going to be in a lot of pain. You're going to be in a lot of pain. I don't know when. It could be a month. It could be 10 years. I don't know. If I knew the future, I'd tell you it.
Exactly.
But it's, and then the removable and that funnel, someone comes in with really bad dentition. And it's just like right away going into so much different things. Do you want to sleep with your teeth or without your teeth?
Right. Simple question.
Do you mind having to take your teeth out at night?
Yeah.
And a patient will say to you,
non-judgmental questions right there.
Right.
You just ask.
Well, what do you mean? Like my grandmother with a glass? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. We could actually make you something that comes in and comes out. God, I would never want that. Oh yeah, me too. I don't, but I have an obligation to present you that option. No, that is not an option for me. Okay, good, Cindy, because then we know not to even go there. But real teeth that don't come out cost a lot different. Well, I actually only have X amount of dollars. Okay, so and just this normal conversation.
Yeah, you're funneling them. You're very similar.
I don't call it that. I call just like, I just
having a conversation.
Having a conversation. But I think that if one pearl could be taken from this conversation for those dentists is just remember, it is not a monologue. You're having a conversation. What do you want?
And by the way, why? Why do they want it?
Why now?
Why now? What is it? What's their motivation? Because if you don't know a patient's motivation, if they haven't shared that with you, then they haven't connected. Right? If people aren't being real with you and being able to say that, then you haven't really connected on the level. It doesn't take a long time, by the way. A lot of people think, I was on a podcast recently and they were like, so you probably do like the 2-hour consult.
Oh God. Shit,
and I'm like, full mouth reconstruction consults, 20 minutes, sometimes on a freak accident, 30 minutes, at most of my time. I'm talking about exam consultation.
Know when to stop and not stop unselling it. Oh my God. I see that happen too.
Right.
Oh my God. 5 and 6 consults and like, oh my God, these elaborate consultations.
The patients are just confused. At that point,
They
right?
are.
Give them some simple options. Would you like to, you know what I always say?
When you confuse, you lose. When you confuse, you lose. I mean, listen, let's go back to I know we're I don't want to go political, but the messaging that you give people when people are confused, you lose, regardless of where you are politically.
Yeah.
No one can tell me what Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential mantra was.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Keep it
we
simple.
all can tell we all know what Trump's was, regardless of where you stand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that goes to show you that clarity trumps anything else. I mean, not
No pun in,
no pun intended, but
pun
clarity,
intended.
the person who's most clear will tend to win.
Well, speaking of Trump, by the way, and I'm not a huge fan of him personally, and I don't want to get political either.
But you're going political.
No, I'm just not a fan of him as a person. Now,
Okay.
a lot of people will say that they're not a fan of his personally, but they like his platform. So
Okay, got it. Okay,
I'm just talking
good
about
distinction.
Personally, his character I find interesting. But anyway, I'm going to get off that topic. But I want to say this about his communication skill. He's considered by some a bad communicator. But what I always found interesting, way before he ever got into politics, I noted how him and a dear friend of his in dentistry, I won't name names, are very repetitive in their speaking, almost like they're stuttering at times. If you listen to Donald, he will repeat himself like sometimes 5 times in a sentence. And it almost is like a poor speaking. But I always noted it. I'm talking about when he was on The Apprentice, and he would just be very repetitive, and he spoke in this funny manner. And the thing is, I always said, I bet that's really effective. Everyone knows his point. And I think maybe when we're presenting, we don't want to maybe just kind of being a little repetitive in our points of, I might say you could do nothing multiple times because I want them to feel.
Right, because then they're actually answering the question for you. You could do nothing. Well, I don't want to do that, Dr. Turchin.
Right.
I know, but I just wanted to, and then, well, that seems really expensive. Well, you could do nothing. No, I have to do something. So so it's such a great thing. And by the way, the same thing works with financing options. I always do this.
Oh, yeah,
so
okay.
I'll tell everyone we offer payment plans. So I've said to things like, we have payment plans to help something of this size fit into your budget. So
Perfect.
A rich person will actually bow up to you at that. Hey, buddy, I don't need a payment plan.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
You see that, you see this car key, this isn't, I'm like, oh, no, I'm just saying. So it's like you can do nothing. No, I have to do something. We have a payment plan. Oh no, I don't need a payment plan, buddy.
Right. So they're basically throwing money at you right then.
Right. But you can't, it doesn't really, I don't think that there's much downside of saying, hey, we offer flexible payment options should you need it.
Absolutely.
The person who money's a stressful portion for the stressful part of their life will say, thank you. That's good to know. And the rich braggadocious person will say, buddy, you're talking to the wrong guy. So it's like how can you get in trouble saying to someone you can do nothing, even if it's their front tooth and they're beautiful, and they say, listen, by the way, you don't have to do anything. This is not going to hurt you. I know you may not like the way it looks, but you can wait to go back to Connecticut. You can do nothing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I obviously can't do that.
Exactly.
So these are really good little things tricks.
Yeah.
To get because you don't want to ask a question in a yes or no when you don't want to know. Would you like to pay today? No, I'm good. Okay, then we'll see you next time.
Exactly. When you want to guide a patient, don't use questions. Just say, hey,
not yes or no questions.
We're going to figure out this financial, we're going to figure out your options.
Yeah, exactly.
And we present options to every single patient. I think I showed you this. One of my big tricks, and I don't mind, giving away half my course right now because it's not half my course. It's just really important things. When you're doing this work, we have pre-printed financial arrangements for our big options, like full mouth reconstruction. I don't think anybody.
Oh yeah, you told me that you have fees.
Yeah, and with the options right there. So we give them. Oh, here's the full mouth. Here's 10 overhead, and here's 10.
Which is great because when you give 3 options, people always tend to pick the middle.
One person has taught me, and I don't know if it's true, but he says the statistics is they actually choose the highest more, they pick the middle more, and the lowest more. In other words, they just say yes more.
Yeah, of course.
If you give them all
when you
3.
confuse, you lose. And what was the first thing? What was the second thing? Yeah, that was the same thing with my Invisalign fees. I remember the local orthodontist when I started really kicking up in Invisalign. She got so mad at me. She came to me. She's like, how do you know the fee for the case? Because I'm like, well, I know what my costs are, and I know some are harder and some are easier, but I don't want to confuse people. And I want everybody in my office being able to say Invisalign is blank. Because if like you have to go to the mighty wizard behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, oh dear wizard, how much is this case? Oh, this is going to be exactly 7.4 months, so it's going to be 4,100. Just
Do you have
everybody
one fee?
one fee always,
Okay. I have
always.
I have three fees, but I know it. I look at somebody, I go, "Oh, you're good. You're a middle. You're a
Well,
mild, moderate, or severe." That's what I.
this is with my position at Invisalign, the delta between the different cases is so minor, and I like
Yeah,
having the ability to open up cases longer. So I might choose, I might be inclined to choose a less robust lab fee, but then the 5-year open ability to refine is something that's important. So if someone does non-compliant and they come in 3 years from now, it's worth for me that maybe the small delta in fee for me. So for me,
sure.
Invisalign's always the same. I just do, I don't utilize a lot of those cases. Although sometimes I do. It's just easier for me to go with those fees.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
And
like the
people tend to
simplicity
say
of it.
yes more.
Right, exactly. And it's probably a reasonable fee, not a
It
low
is a reasonable
fee,
fee.
right? Not a low
Yeah.
fee, not a high fee, right in the middle.
Listen, it's always good having you here. Always good talking with you. And I'm happy that we got a chance to share our stuff with the listeners, because there's a lot of people out there that might be in a situation and far down the road and say, you know what, it's time to pull the plug and reinvent myself. Or they're in a happy spot and they're like, you know what, maybe I do need real hands-on training in this arena of cosmetics. But listen, that's why we do what we do. We want to pay it forward, and I'm sure that there's better things you can do with your time um, than the economics of the teaching. But it gives back a lot. So
I love it.
yeah.
Well,
So
thanks
thanks
for
for doing
having me,
this,
man. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
and we'll be in touch soon, my friend. Thanks for listening, everybody.